Ron, do you guys bid on university stuff anymore?
Yeah. Frankly, yeah. Got the cap of about 99% finished.
Oh, you're working on that one? Yeah.
That house looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Went in there for the inside for the first time a week or so ago. They've got, I guess Kappa's, that's their one of their tiger print carpeting.
Oh my God.
Now, that was only on one floor, but I have a feeling it goes through. But they more than double, triple this. Yeah. It's a company out of up in Kansas City. And in fact, we're bidding that parking deck for them.
There we are.
Yeah. So yeah, wherever we can find them, we'll bid them.
That's cool.
Miss Bunch, how are you?
Mr. Autry, I'm fine.
Good. Such a formal deal, I know. Where's the at?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm thinking about doing your hairstyle today.
I tell you what, can't beat this.
Sweet! I got beer money.
Thank you.
What is it? I must have lost it.
I guess it'd be inappropriate for direct deposit to the code, wouldn't it?
Still need one more.
I can handle it. Got your stick. So is Tracy just not going to be here?
Oh, he'll show up. It's always right at the last one. If not, we're done.
Kyle, can you just swap your name tag?
I can't be on.
Oh, man.
Yes. I have the gavel. Just leave.
It was a quiet takeover.
But not bloodless, I'm sure.
Definitely not.
So did you do the key fob or did you do the FTP site for your agenda?
No, I got the fob.
Okay.
That's like pretty cats. That's it. Well, no, I'm not talking about managing homes. I'm just I mean, if they do, yeah, essentially
Okay. Oh, we're saved. More commissioners showing up. Wow.
Jared, look.
Well, I guess, let's see, do we have any conditional uses on it?
Require one cell tower.
You think that's gonna be a problem? And no rezoning, so I guess everything else is by majority.
Yeah, so we need to let them know that
Still
conditional use.
requires 4, so it'll be 2/3.
I'm here, that's all that counts.
We're very glad to see you. Well, some people are glad to see you.
On the end, probably.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Fayetteville Planning Commission for June 24th. Remind everyone to please silence your cell phones, if you would, please. And also, if there's anybody in here that needs any hearing device, please let staff know and we can help you out. I guess, Andrew, let's call the roll.
Noble. Autry.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Chesser. Pennington.
Here.
Honchel. Cook.
Here.
Winston.
Here.
Bunch.
Here.
Okay, first up, consent. Number 1 on consent is approval of the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Number 2 is vacation 13-4402 for 2111 Martin Luther King Panda Express, submitted by Laurel Hoffman for property located at 2111 Martin Luther King. Property is Zone C2 thoroughfare commercial and contains approximately 1/100th of an acre. The request is to vacate a portion for a water and sewer easement. Number 3 is vacation 13-4421 for 100 West Dixon, Collier's Drugstore, submitted by Karen King for property located at 100 West Dixon. Property is zone MSC Main Street Center. The request is vacate a 15-foot wide alley located on the north portion of the drugstore site. Is there anybody that wants to pull or discuss anything, or I'll take a motion?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Item number 4, which I don't think you've gotten to yet, on the consent agenda. I have a question for staff.
Yeah.
It's not on there.
It's not on there.
Oh, is it not? Excuse me.
It's why we got the nice paper one.
I didn't see it. Nobody told me about this one.
We already took that one off.
Okay, thanks.
We knew you had a question.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Garner.
Autry.
Yes.
Hoskins.
Yes.
Pennington.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Winston.
Yes.
Bunch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, new business. First up is preliminary plat 13-4382 for 1249 and 1203 through 1203 West Cato Springs Road, submitted by Crafton and Toll for property located, as I mentioned, 1249 through 1203 West Cato Springs. This property is zoned I-1 heavy commercial and light industrial and RMF residential multifamily, 24 units per acre, and contains approximately 17.04 acres. The request is for 3 industrial lots. Mr. Garner, I guess you have the report.
Yes, sir. As mentioned, we have the property pulled up here on Google Earth showing this is on the south side of Cato Springs Road, just east of Razorback Road, where the place marker is. It's the site. It's about 17 acres. As mentioned, the majority of this site is zoned industrial. The southern portion along this creek here is actually zoned multifamily. They're proposing to build a street and split the property into 3 industrial lots. You can see here what the proposal looks like. So these 3 lots, 1, 2, and 3 would be developable industrial lots. Then you would have detention in this area and then tree preservation along here associated with the creek and the floodplain. This went through our subdivision committee at our last meeting, and the subdivision committee recommended it be approved. There is a variance being requested for the dead-end street. This street is greater than 500 feet in length, and it's a dead end, so it requires variance approval, and the fire department has looked at it and is okay with the design of it. We're not recommending that the street be stubbed out in any direction because you have the railroad corridor right here adjacent to the west. You have creek and floodplain along the south and the east. And this street here would provide access to this large lot that has a single family on it could be tied into this street at some point in the later if they ever choose to. The subdivision committee did mention some concerns with the design of the hammerhead, and in particular just concerns that if they use a standard street cross section with pavement, that it might be damaged or cracked and that sort of thing with large truck traffic. So I will let the committee members speak up on that issue if they want to. And with that, there's a couple of determinations for the Planning Commission to make. Number one is a determination of a variance for the dead-end street. Number two is recommendation of street improvements. Street improvements are pretty standard, so I won't read through all of those. Condition of approval number three is recommendation of multi-use trail improvements. And along the creek corridor here, there is planned for a multi-use trail, so the developer is showing on here dedication of a multi-use trail easement. And we're also recommending at least a pedestrian access easement connecting from the street down to this trail. And we're also recommending that they grade out the area for the trail, which they have indicated on their plans that they will do. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Is the anybody here representing the project? Please state your name if you would and add anything else you'd like.
Sure. My name is Jonathan Ely. I'm with Craft & Toll. We're representing the project tonight. I don't really have a whole lot to add. I have spoken with the developer about the pavement section in the hammerhead and the concerns about that. We would prefer to just leave that item to an engineering kind of pavement design, you know, when we get into the detailed engineering design if possible. Once we get the soil analysis on the fill that's in there, it may prove that it's stable enough to stand up with asphalt instead of concrete. So just wanted to make that request for you to consider tonight. And beyond that, I'll answer any other questions you might have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Question for Glenn, city engineer. Glenn, at the subdivision committee, I had voiced concern about the Hammerhead Street, and of course this is industrial property, and it'll be used for, my understanding is for medium-sized truck traffic or what have you. And the turning movements on that Hammerhead Street, of course, these movements all along. Now, I appreciate what the applicant said about leaving the design of that to engineering or what have you. This area out here is fairly swampy anyway, isn't it? So they're gonna have to be undercutting and backfilling anyway, correct?
The field is brought on site. They will be elevating the site a few feet, yes, sir.
Okay, so as far as the subgrade goes, and you can speak to this if you will, my concern is not with the subgrade, because the subgrade is going to hold up whatever's on top of it. My concern is with that few inches of asphalt on top of that, and what truck traffic does, especially in a design like this, that continued movement as far as moving asphalt or what have you.
Right. The concern, I believe, that I understand that you have is similar to what we discuss on parking lots that are trying permeable pavement and other items. We allow the areas that don't have the turning movements, that have a possibility of separation, to be in the parking stall versus the high traffic turning areas. And with the anticipation of larger trucks and a lot of turning movements at that location, that is a possibility that would deteriorate quicker than it would be a linear location. Pavement design through engineering, if you're just talking about thickness, I don't know if a difference in thickness will make much difference on turning movements of there. I think it's the actual movement itself. So unless there's a different mix design for asphalt, concrete does hold up better in those type situations.
Mm-hmm. What I don't want to get into is, in a few years, I mean, this street will be built and dedicated to the city. And in a few years from now, we've all seen what, for instance, trash trucks do. It's very similar type of movement in and out of parking lots or what have you. And I've seen what those do to roads and parking lots, and of course, also intersections of streets in town or whatever, where you have the same condition, and on inclined areas or what have you. And so my concern is that the city will be down there, potentially be down there a few years from now, repairing asphalt, where if it was concrete, a lot less likely that we'll be down there repairing it. And so I believe in this situation with the design of that hammerhead, and you can tell me what you think, but I think especially for the minimal cost difference between the two street cross sections, that concrete's a much safer way to go.
Based on my understanding, from dealing with contractors recently, there's not much, to my knowledge, a cost difference in the two, just given the current environment. And definitely for the situation being proposed as industrial park, I believe concrete would work better in this location. I think there's an opportunity with the request for the extended street length that can be considered by planning commission, making that a requirement if they deem that being appropriate. So right now, in general, the commercial roadway doesn't have a different design criteria. We don't have very many industrial parks coming through, so it's something we don't have additional requirements for per se. The benefit of this site is that it is being brought up on field, and so the subgrade should be very good condition for the heavier loads, with the turning movements for larger trucks would anticipate a little bit more use in those areas, deteriorate quicker than it would any type of other subdivision.
Right. So do you feel like that's a reasonable request then, as far as a reasonable condition to put on it?
Based on the zoning, I think that is a reasonable area to consider. I would say at the radius returns would be the limits of a requirement per se, and allow the evaluation design to go beyond that if necessary during the construction review. But I do think those items are worth considering.
Right. Thank you very much, Glenn. Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
The way that I would support this project is if a condition of approval was included that the hammerhead be constructed of concrete as opposed to asphalt, and that as far as up into the street section of the hammerhead, that Glenn within engineering can make that determination, but I'm thinking 3 or 4 feet beyond where the turning radius starts, 3 to 4 feet north of, maybe 10 feet, you can pick, I don't care. As long as that hammerhead itself is concrete, I'm comfortable with it.
Are you making a motion?
Am I?
You're putting
Sure,
a condition on one.
Nobody else wants to discuss anything, sure.
Well, they may.
You can discuss it after the motion.
I can?
Yes, you can, if there's a second.
Great, thanks, Kip. Now I gotta get back to where I was then. I guess, make a motion to approve, I've lost it. Make a motion to approve, I guess, preliminary plat 13-4382 with staff's recommendations of approval, and adding the additional recommendation of as stated that the hammerhead portion of the street be constructed of concrete and approved, the exact design criteria approved by the engineering department. And Andrew, did you say there was a determination made?
3.
There is a number 1. In fact, I would
1, 2,
include your
sorry.
condition there where they're asking for the variance of the too long dead-end street, and with the end of the dead-end street being that hammerhead. So I think that that's probably where your other language should go as part of the condition of that variance, that the very end, the hammerhead turnaround would be constructed of concrete.
Like Kit said. Is that good enough, Andrew, or do I need to restate
And
it?
then, that's fine, and then on that, we do need determination on conditions number 2 and 3 as well.
Let's see.
Street improvements and trail improvements.
I guess it would be agreeing with staff's recommendations on items number 2 and 3.
And I think the developer was in agreement with the conditions 2 and 3 on the trail. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
As
thank
far
you.
as the grading and easement, yep.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion amongst commissioners? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Garner?
Autry?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next item is administrative item 13-4397, submitted by Paradigm Development for property located at Oak Brook Phase 3. The property is zoned Oak Brook 3 RPZD 093439 and contains a total of 26.76 acres. The request is to modify Oak Brook Phase 3 RPZD 093439 by reducing the number of dwelling units and adjusting alleyways.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
being closely related to this project, I'm going to be taking my leave
Okay.
of the commission for the next couple of items.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You said a couple of items or a couple of hours?
Couple hours?
We may not be here, but yeah. All right, Mr. Fulcher, I guess this one's yours.
Yes, thanks. A little bit of background on items 5 and 6 are both associated with the Oak Brook subdivision, 2 different phases, and that's why we brought them forward as 2 separate items. As you mentioned a little bit in the introduction, the original subdivision was approved in 2005, and there was 2 phases, 1 and 2. That's when they received the Plan Zoning District approval to kind of customize this subdivision. They completed the utility infrastructure and streets and started home construction in about 2008. In 2009, the applicant brought forward a new PZD, ultimately just a rezoning of the subdivision under Oak Brook 3. They left out lots 1 through 17, which are items listed under number 6, or the lots that will be affected by the request in number 6. Everything else was rezoned to Oak Brook 3. It didn't really change the layout as far as the streets and the utility lines and all of that. It just allowed for some more unique lot configurations, some smaller lots in some areas. So that's the zoning that covers all of this property except for lots 1 through 17. This particular request actually is fairly simple, regardless of all the background and different phases that we've gone through. They're simply just trying to reduce some of the number of lots that they have in here. The applicant's provided on page 6 of 12, the proposed density modification. There's 4 areas. 3 of those are lot reductions. Essentially, it's taking it back to what was approved in 2005. And it's just dropping some of the lots down. That actual lot configuration still exists because new plats were never filed. So it's just changing the zoning to match what legally is already out there. The one exception is this increase of 5 lots to 9 lots. That's actually what was already approved in Oak Brook 3 through a minor modification that staff was able to review and approve. There was a reduction down to 5. They've changed back to 9. Again, a lot of information for very simple changes to the subdivision in our opinion. So, and then one alley on the south side of the property is going to be eliminated due to some drainage structures and a number of trees that are along the Bellwood subdivision. And that subdivision will show up, or that alley will show up in item 6 where they're going to propose that on the west property line. So again, very simple changes to the subdivision as far as density and eliminating one of the alleys. Because this is a major modification, it's essentially a zoning change as it's spelled out in the PZD ordinance, so it requires planning commission approval and city council approval. The applicant did notify all the adjacent neighborhoods, so that's Bridgeport, Bellwood, the people that live within the Oak Brook subdivision, and the adjacent property owners to the north and east. On this item, which is Oak Brook Phase 3, we are recommending this be forwarded to the city council with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone representing the project here? I guess he left the room. Okay, is there anyone in the public that'd like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any comment from commissioners or motions or?
I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Okay.
Are we doing these separate or together?
Separate motions.
Yeah.
Okay, right. It's all pretty straightforward. So basically going back to what we'd approved back in '05. So I'll move to approve administrative item 13-4397 for Oak Brook PZD Phase 3. Do we have any?
No conditions.
No conditions on that, yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Oh, I guess it's a motion to approve or forward? Forward to.
With recommendation
with
of approval.
Great.
I'll make a motion to forward to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I still second.
All right, now we're official. Mr. Garner?
Autry?
Yes.
Hoskins? Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then once again, Make a motion to forward to City Council with a recommendation for approval, ADM 13-4420 for Oak Brook PZD Phase 1.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Garner?
Autry,
Yes.
Pennington,
Yes.
Yes.
Winston,
Yes.
Bunch.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item, administrative item 13-4379, submitted by Clayton Scott for property located at 3075 North College Avenue. This is for Freakin' Chicken. The property contains approximately a quarter of an acre and is zoned C2 thoroughfare commercial. The request is a variance to allow for a temporary retail structure to remain on the property for longer than 90 days. I guess Mr. Garner.
Yes, sir. I have the property pulled up here on the aerial photo. The address is it's located near 3078 North College Avenue. The applicant has a food trailer selling fried chicken. They received an outdoor mobile vending permit from the Planning Division on April 4th, and the permit's valid for 90 days and will expire on July 4th. As additional background, on this same property, the Planning Commission has seen several other variances for Shave the Planet Snow Cone, which is also located right next to this food trailer. When Shave the Planet was approved with their vending permit this year, the Commission required them to plant 2 trees to start bringing the property into compliance with some of the parking lot landscaping requirements, which they did. They did plant the trees, and they have been approved and inspected. The applicant is requesting a variance from the Planning Commission to allow for their food trailer to be on the property for 1 year. As far as public comment goes, we did receive 1 letter objecting to the request from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kentucky Fried Chicken is located just about 300 feet to the south at the corner of Rolling Hills Drive. In addition, one of the findings that the Commission has to make when you're looking at these variances are there any businesses that have similar products or sell similar products? And another part of the finding is, would the presence of this type of a vendor for an extended period of time, could it cause an adverse impact to that business, and or would it be a special advantage or a disadvantage for the existing businesses compared to the outdoor mobile vendor? And in staff's findings, we did find that it could potentially have adverse impact to some of the businesses in the area. There's, in particular, as we noted in your staff report, several businesses that sell very similar products as this type of a vendor, and we feel like it doesn't meet the intent of the code. And we did put in here, if the Commission chooses to approve the condition, this variance, that the permit would be for 1 year from the date of issuance. On condition of approval number 2, we put in there some different options the Commission could consider to have the property owner start bringing the site into compliance with development codes. And I won't read through all of those, but those are some things for the Commission that you may want to consider. And that pretty much summarizes it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone representing Freakin' Chicken here that would please come on up and add anything else you'd like? And state your name, if you would, for the record.
All right, my name is Clayton Scott. I'm the owner of Best Freakin' Chicken in town. And I have a few remarks I'd like to make. And in desiring to fulfill our dream for a food truck to serve fried chicken, I couldn't get a loan at the Bank of Fayetteville, so I accumulated all the possible money I could to start my business. And to move after just 3 months would create immeasurable difficulty for me for a beginning business. And my partner, Jeanette, and I are both school teachers. And she's a special education teacher in Springdale, and I'm a teaching artist traveling all over the state, teaching creative writing. We initially saw this business as extra income and possible retirement money, since I lost all my retirement money in the stock market crash. But Jeanette had a fall at work that eventually required an emergency surgery. And due to lifting special needs children, she may not be able to go back to work. So now we're looking at this as living income for her. We live 3 blocks from our present location. With the amount of back and forth, the traffic required, just getting stuff back and forth, it's critical that we're close to our business for her health and recovery. I'm just talking about one hardship that we're dealing with. Our location for a new mobile business is perfect. It's the traffic flow in and out of our location is safe and easy because we are directly behind Shave the Planet. People are used to coming in and out of this location, and it is great exposure to surrounding businesses to benefit those businesses and certainly not be a disadvantage to them. Parking is ample. We are providing dining variety to a streetscape of our neighborhood, and patrons are thoroughly enjoying our presence there. We're clean freaks and sticklers for details regarding pleasing aesthetic with the presentation and look of our business, Best Frickin' Chicken in Town. And all these are positive, proactive perspectives for our reason for desiring a variance from the Planning Commission. There are approximately 47 businesses within 2 blocks of our food trailer, 7 of which are food-related businesses, and any one of those could have written an opposition, but of course Kentucky Fried Chicken did. A letter of protest, of course, was sent to the city of Fayetteville, and in the letter, I feel like I need to address some of the issues by Kentucky Fried Chicken. First of all, close proximity. In actuality, there are 4 businesses between KFC and us with no visibility to our business whatsoever. Hardy sells chicken products, and they're directly across the street. Zaxby's is exclusively a fried chicken business and can be seen from KFC, just seconds north on College Avenue. Within 10 minutes south of KFC are Slim Chicken, long-standing, highly and successful AQ Chicken, and the newly located Foghorns, which looks really cool. My point here is that if someone has a hankering for chicken, they can satisfy their desire at restaurants with much better visibility and longevity than I. In applying for the variance, Mr. Morrow of KFC states, in borrowing verbiage from the ordinance, that we may have an unfair advantage over KFC at their location. Note that they are at the prominent and highly visible corner of Rolling Hills and College, where 33,000 cars pass every day. Unfair advantage? Kentucky Fried Chicken is a subsidiary of the colossal fast food conglomerate Yum Brands, who owns Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Long John Silver's. KFC is in 18,000 locations in 120 countries around the world. The empire of KFC revenue in 2011 was $15 billion, second only to McDonald's. Jeanette and I are 2 people in an 8x24 trailer with 2 chicken fryers in the shadow behind a shaved ice building. Unfair advantage? KFC spends close to $400 million a year on advertising. You probably saw their commercials during the NBA Finals. You know how much I spend on advertising? 0, because I had no money to spend on advertising, not 1 penny. I had a pretty decent sign made for $450 that was stolen. Who has an unfair advantage here? KFC has big, beautiful signs that are well lit 24/7. Menu. KFC has 50 options on their full-color, high-dollar, graphically designed menu. This is my menu, printed at Office Depot with about 10 items. Where's the unfair advantage? Hours of operation. Because of our teaching schedule, Jeanette's surgery, recovery, and rehab, we have only been able to open Friday and Saturday nights a total of 7 hours per week. KFC is open 7 days a week for a total of 77 hours. Unfair advantage? Mr. Morrow states that we are a profound conflict of interest to their newly remodeled location. I wonder, did Mr. Morrow invest any personal money in that remodel? Did any management of the location personally invest $1 in that remodel?
Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
We need to, don't make this personal right now, please. We need to stick to your project, please.
Okay, I got it. Well, Mr. Morrow says in his letter that he does not want us an extension or there at all. And I'm asking the Planning Commission members, for the reasons that I've stated, that we really do want to stay there a while longer, and I ask that you to vote favorably on behalf of my application and variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, open it up to public comments. If anybody else would like to speak, come on up. State your name if you would, please.
Hello, my name is Doug Shields. I live at 458 South Buchanan in Fayetteville. I've known Clayton Scott for a very long time. He is a teacher and an artist, and he's a businessman trying to provide for his family. He also makes the best fried chicken I've ever tasted, and I've tasted a lot of fried chicken. My family take pride in their fried chicken, and he would put them to shame. This is on television. I hope my family doesn't see this. The idea that KFC would be threatened by Clayton Scott is silly, really, for reasons that he pointed out. They spend more in advertising revenue than he will ever see in his life. KFC is a household name. People coming from Fort Smith, people coming from Mexico City will see KFC from half a mile away, know immediately what it is, and go there. They have signage that is visible from a long way away, while Clayton does not. Most importantly, though, they cater to different markets, entirely different markets. KFC's primary market are families who don't have time to cook for their children but don't want to feed them fast food. That's really who goes to KFC. While Clayton Scott, on the other hand, caters to people who have eaten a lot of chicken in their lives, have a discriminating palate about chicken, and really love chicken. Quite frankly, people who love chicken and eat a lot of different chicken and choose the best don't eat at KFC. Sorry, but it's true. They go to Clayton. So Clayton Scott no more threatens the business of KFC than a specialty boutique would threaten Walmart. So I urge this council to support local business and allow frickin' chicken to do business.
Thank you for your comments.
Hello, my name is Houston Hughes. I live at 888 West Lawson here in Fayetteville. I'd like to touch on the subject of competition, on the idea that Clayton Scott provides direct competition to KFC or any of a number of other chicken businesses in the area. And I'd like to point specifically to Mr. Scott's menu in regard to this. As he has mentioned before, his menu is very minimal. Not only is it very minimal, it includes chicken and waffles. Actually, every chicken dish that comes at his restaurant comes with waffles, which is something that you cannot get at any other restaurant in the area. Additionally, he has a fried candy bar, and that makes up just about the entirety of his menu. So part of the question here, obviously, is are people going to see KFC and see Clayton Scott's business, or see Hardee's and see Clayton Scott's business and think, my goodness, I better go to this place because it has the exact same menu but is local. And I don't believe that's the case because there is such a discrepancy in what is sold. Not only is there a discrepancy in what is sold, there is a discrepancy in the way in which it is sold. It is hot outside. It is immensely hot outside right now. Clayton Scott does not provide air conditioning. Clayton Scott, all seating for that is outdoors in the heat. KFC, on the other hand, has air conditioning. KFC also has a drive-through, so if people are in a hurry to get their food, they would immediately go to KFC. Clayton Scott cannot provide you anything if you want quick food. The last time I was there, I waited somewhere around 25 minutes for my meal. It was worth it, but if I wanted something fast, that would not be the place that I would go. So I suppose all I'm stating is that this is not anywhere near the same kind of business because it is not catering to the same kinds of people with the same kind of needs. Granted, it may start with the same basic product, but the results are completely different.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Oh, all right.
When Clayton and Jeanette first started talking about this, they thought they were going to be able to do it themselves. And then she experienced some hardships, and it would have been just him alone. So I volunteered to work in the kitchen for him, and I've been doing that since he's been open. When they first brought me in on it, it was to be a designer and to design their chicken, their logo, and their advertising, their signage. Now I'm in the truck sweating it out. They've already touched on all the other things about, you know, how ridiculous it is for KFC to complain about fairness. If the issue is proximity, then my question is, where is the line of fairness? How close is too close? At the Martin Luther King Boulevard, you've got how many chicken places that you can see? One from, you know, I can see Zaxby's from Chick-fil-A. You get what I'm saying? So I just want to see him succeed. And if moving the truck is going to be another hardship, then I don't want to see that. I'll continue to volunteer no matter where he is, but I'd urge you to just let them stay.
Sir,
Thanks.
would you state your name for the record?
Matthew Depper.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Anybody else? All right, now we'll close it to public comment. Any comment from commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
here I go again.
It's all right.
While I appreciate everything that the applicant has said, there are answers in our very code to some of the questions they've asked. I think somebody asked a moment ago, what is the distance? I think, doesn't the code provide for a particular distance, Andrew?
It does. If after 90 days the vendor has to move at least a half mile away from their existing location.
So there's the answer to the last question that was asked. As far as the applicant kind of really made a lot of the points that I was going to make, Kentucky Fried Chicken, they leased their property. As far as the improvements, the recent extensive remodeling of that property, they've either paid for it themselves or it's realized in their lease. So that's another expense. And I think what a lot of times what we fail to realize is the unfair advantage is not necessarily, well, you can see their building better than you can see ours or what have you. It's that bricks and mortar businesses are there all year long through the good times and the bad times, making their lease payments or their property payments, remitting their taxes, paying their business property taxes, paying for water and sewer and sanitation and handicap facilities, et cetera, et cetera. All the bricks and mortar businesses go through a lot of expense all year long, day in, day out, all day, all night, that is an unfair, it provides for an unfair advantage over the mobile vendors who do not have to go to this expense. And so whenever you're talking products that, I mean, we've heard arguments up here that, you know, one flower shop they sell more unique flowers than the other flower shop. To me, that's not a valid argument. They're both selling flowers, and that's what the code says. Are they selling similar products? And in this case, you know, it's identical products. It's all chicken. And so while if we were comparing this to Hardee's across the street, whose primary business is hamburgers, who sells chicken fingers on the side, that's one thing. Or Sonic, same thing. But you have businesses around you that are very, very close to you that's what their menu is. It's chicken. I mean, that's their primary menu. That's your primary menu. And so the code is very, very clear. In fact, when you fill out your permit, it states on there, what is it you're selling? You have to disclose what you're selling. Well, that's for a reason, so that staff can determine if you're selling the same product as a bricks and mortar business that's right down the street from you. Again, you know, I know that this panel in particular has been very liberal about approving these, and of course I've always been on the opposite side of that if the business was one that was, as the code states, very similar to neighboring businesses. When you're 300 feet away from Kentucky Fried Chicken on one side, and just not very much further than that, then I think it's Slim Chickens on the north side. Zaxby's, thank you. Can't remember that one. A lot of chicken places, and who just bought that property and did an extensive remodel on it. Per what the code provides for us, this is not something I can support. Thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
A few questions for the applicant, if you can come back up for a minute. As Commissioner Hoskins just mentioned, there are varying perspectives on this kind of question on the board, and I think you mentioned mine. I'd like to clarify that a little bit. That if I can find a reason why, though the ingredients might be similar, that how it's presented or something special about those ingredients or that sort of thing, then I can often find a way to support that the application. And in the case of the flower shop, It wasn't flowers.
Sorry.
It wasn't, the issue wasn't about the flowers, it was that they were also wedding planners. So, you know, it's another way of looking at it. In this case, it's pretty clearly chicken and chicken. And so I'd like you to tell me if the chicken itself is different than the chicken that you'd be getting over at KFC, or if the oil's different, or the spices are different, if it's an entirely, you know, tell me all the ways that it's not KFC.
Well, if we had a taste test and blindfolded people, and they tasted KFC and they tasted my chicken, they would go, this chicken, freaking chicken, is completely different than this chicken. The taste is completely different. We spent 2 years pushing and pulling tastes and spices and seasonings to get a chicken that is unique of any chicken I've ever eaten in my entire life, and I love fried chicken, and I was raised on KFC. But we wanted to find a chicken recipe that was absolutely uniquely different. And that's why we chose a name, like best frickin' chicken in town. That's a pretty bold statement. And our chicken is different. It's spicier. It's got some smack to it that is completely different than KFC's original recipe. And we took pride in that. And we worked a long time to make sure that is absolutely the case. We are different than KFC.
Is it healthier?
Oh, well, we use 0% trans fat, soybean. I don't know what, I'm not sure what they use. We use soybean oil, and it tastes better. And whether it's healthier, I don't know yet. I guess we'd have to have the University of Arkansas do a study on that.
Okay. And where do you get your chicken from? Is it local, or is it frozen, or?
Tankersley Foods provides our chicken, and it comes from Tyson. And I'm not sure where KFC gets their chicken.
Right.
It's a marinated chicken, a 3-pound chicken after it's butchered. And so, and I don't know if, you know, if we're comparing apples with apples here in that perspective, but I know the taste is different, and the breading's different. And like this gentleman earlier said, our menu's completely different. We offer things that KFC doesn't, and they offer things that we don't. A lot more things that we don't. So our menu is simple, and just a few items.
Do you have side dishes?
Yes, we have corn on the cob, Mama J's ham hock beans, and French fries, tater tots, Frito pies, and a fried Snickers is our signature dessert.
Okay. I'm gonna have to get back to you.
Okay.
Let me process all that.
All right.
Oh, there was one other thing. The question about distance between business, how far is too far? I think the question was actually how near is too near. It wasn't about how far you need to move the next time. It's the current distance between two businesses in question. And I don't think does the ordinance say how near is too near as far as the current distance between two buildings?
It doesn't say.
Okay. One other question was about, I think one big difference, if I was to point at some, would be that yours is not fast food. When I go to KFC, it's already there. They're just picking it and putting it in the basket and handing it to you. What's the state of a piece of chicken, when I roll up to the window? Is it frozen, thawed, breaded, ready to go in the fryer?
It's when I start my when I start my day, it's fresh chicken. It's delivered on Friday and it's cooked that night, and it's refrigerated for 2 days, so it's fresh right out of the fridge, and it goes right into the breading pan and right into the fryer, and then we put it in warmers up to health code, and it stays warm, stays hot, stays fresh. And when somebody drives up and they walk up to the counter and order our chicken, it was cooked 15, 20, 30 minutes prior to their arrival. So we had a guy come in the other night, and we had chicken ready to serve and put in containers, and he said, no, I want to wait 15 minutes for fresh chicken right out of the fryer. And he waited for 15 minutes for me to pull up a fresh batch of chicken. So we try to keep it as fresh as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true of all of our products. Our French fries and tater tots, I throw them in right when somebody orders them. I don't like French fries and tater tots sitting in a warmer because they lose their taste. So I'll say, do you mind waiting 3 minutes for me to throw in some fresh fries? And usually they're willing to wait.
It's really hard to make these decisions on an empty stomach. We'll see if anybody else has got any questions.
Okay.
And
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Coming from a extensive background in the restaurant business, basically what the applicant just described is most likely pretty much the standard operating procedure of most any restaurant out there. Some of them have product, depends on how busy they are. They may have product sitting for 15 minutes ready to sell. They may have no product and have to make it up and somebody has to wait. That's pretty typical in the restaurant business. I don't know that as far as our code goes, I don't know that we can decipher, you know, what spices makes any difference or how they prepare their chicken or where they get it from or whether it's fresh or frozen or otherwise. I don't think that that's really provided in the code. And so, so to me, like I said, and I'm not saying anything I haven't said before on these occasions, you know, they're pretty much identical products.
Okay. Any other commissioners?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
We've had several of these come up as far as temporary type businesses and with extensions and so forth, probably the fourth or fifth one just since I've been on the commission. The location here, Shave the Planet, has had a continual okay approval from the commission since 2009. That site has been available since for 4+ years as far as availability to mobile type businesses. The egress in and out is accessible, it's safe, and I really don't have a real issue with your business staying there. As far as telling the differences in, yes, you can line all these chicken places up. I'm sure yours is great, just as all the other competitors are. I don't have a problem with that either, with your location. And since we've more or less set a precedent, not that we need to do this forever, I have no issue with your location remaining there. Now, I would like to ask you, the planning staff has asked for or suggested about 6 conditions. I assume you've looked over those.
I have, yes.
Would you be able to approve or fulfill some of those, all of those, or do you have any objection to any of them?
I can afford, I mean, I would do what I can afford to do, obviously. Trees, I can do trees. I know Shave the Planet did trees. That's not, I like trees. I'd love for trees to be around my property. A sidewalk, restrooms. I'm sure that Matthias, who are the new owners of our property, Ben Israel sold it to them. They would be responsible, of course, for sidewalks. I don't know why there's not handicap parking there already. I've thought about that and wondered why that Mr. Israel hadn't provided that, and I'm sure that Matthias Properties would be delighted to add that. I'd go out there and paint the signs myself if I could do it within code. And I think those are the provisions. A portable restroom, I'm sure that Eric and I could pitch in and do something like that together. Matthias might pitch in to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing to the community. So I'll do whatever I can do. I think I stayed within my variance within reason, and that's, you know, what I can afford to do, I'll do.
And you don't have any outside seating currently? Outside seating?
I have 2 tables and 9 chairs. And I do have a canopy, by the way, that I can unfold for shading. I'm just waiting until it gets a little hotter.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I have nothing else.
All right.
Any other commissioners? Or motions, or?
I had a question for staff on let's see, the public sidewalk, 50 linear feet of public sidewalk that's requested for this. Seems like a lot.
Well, yeah, I will just point out those things that we put in the staff report. We're not recommending all of those. We just, as you can see in the staff report we put here, these are some things that, some potential public improvements the commission could consider.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's whatever there's not an exact formula on these types of things. It's not like a large scale development where you have to do sidewalk. It's really what you feel is roughly proportional to the business, and also, you know, so we put in there several different options. So it's not like we felt like they all needed to be done, but just to give the commission, I had the assumption the commission would probably, if they approved it, would want to add some conditions like this. So these are some suggestions. The 50 feet of sidewalk was just, you know, this is divided up into two parcels, and then kind of this northern piece, this northern 50 feet here, from this driveway here, that's kind of what I was thinking. If you wanted to do sidewalk, that was probably where we would recommend it, right at the back of the green space. But if you don't want to recommend it, it's your prerogative.
Okay. What are your plans in the future? If your business is here for another year and it's successful, are you? I would suggest that if you came back in a year wanting another extension, it might not be as easily granted as it may be tonight. So I was wondering what your idea is with this business.
Well, we've been pretty inspired with Hawaiian Brian's, what happened with them, and within 3 months they were in a brick and mortar. And of course they stepped into an ideal situation. Someone approached them about an ideal location, and I would love that to happen to us. You know, my goal is to be brick and mortar. I don't know how long that will take. It will depend on finances, and I have no capital whatsoever. I spend every dime I have just getting my truck up and going. So we'll have to see what happens but my goal, my heart's desire is to have a brick and mortar, and always have a mobile food truck. I think it's the growing trend in cities that are progressive and forward thinking. Fayetteville certainly is one of those cities, but I'd love to be in a brick and mortar. That would be my ultimate goal, as soon as possible. If it happened today, I'd move into a spot.
Great. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve Administrative Item 13-4379 for Frickin' Chicken with in conditions of approval number 2, number C, which is to provide 2 bicycle racks within 50 feet of the 2 existing mobile vendors and provide restroom facilities of a sort. And provide shaded outdoor seating for customers of the mobile vendors when it's appropriate as far as the weather goes. And I leave that up to the owner of the business. And I'm just going to say that though I see that the items are appreciably similar to KFC. I think that there's a difference in approach, and I'm going to hang my hat on that.
Thank you.
I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion or comments?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just to get on record, I won't belabor the point, but I think the applicant has met his burden of showing that this is not an unfair advantage. Some of the products are similar, but I agree the approach is different, and I hope it passes.
Anybody else? Good. All right, Mr. Garner.
Autry?
Yes.
Hoskins?
No.
Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
See, you didn't need me anyway. They never do.
All right, thank you.
Between me and you, I knew you had it aced anyway, so.
Okay,
At least they weren't here to talk about it.
Next item, conditional use permit 13-4365. Submitted by TCM Enterprises for property located at 1720 East Zion Road. The property is zoned RA, residential, agricultural, and contains approximately 3.15 acres. The request is for conditional use permit for a wireless communications facility, which is use unit 36. I guess Mr. Fulcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a conditional use request, 150-foot flagpole tower on Zion Road. This is just east of Vantage Drive. The 150-foot tower, that's the maximum allowed in the city of Fayetteville. The flagpole design they proposed is the desirable design. The last several that have been constructed in the city of Fayetteville have been that. We think that they've worked very well. AT&T, the applicant, part of the applicant, the carrier that would go on this tower, stated in their application that they have coverage in this area of the city. There's a number of towers. It's obvious by the map, and looking in this area, there's one on the very end of Zion at crossover, one south down College. There's two behind the mall there in Johnson. So it's not really a coverage issue that's being requested that they're trying to address. It's a capacity issue. It's the amount of data usage, the number of smartphones, devices, what you can do with a phone nowadays, the content that you can download, the number of vehicles that are traveling through the Joy Street area at College and Vantage and those areas. And so that's really what they're trying to do with this tower. With honestly anything that they're attempting to do is to address the capacity shortfalls that they're having, the stress that's putting on the towers that I described that surround this area. There's going to be some obvious benefits in coverage. When you add another tower, it's going to make coverage just a little bit better, or maybe even a lot better. But the basis of the application, from what they've told us, is that this is a capacity issue that they're attempting to address. The applicants did attempt to co-locate on a structure, actually on the Lindsay building. It's about 100 feet tall, plus or minus, and they felt that that was going to work for their capacity issue. It sits right next to Joyce Boulevard, right in the corridor that they're trying to cover, and they worked at that, my understanding, for several months, and just weren't able to get a lease signed to get some antenna set up on that building, and that would have been a very good solution. We do appreciate them attempting to do that. When that fell through, they started looking at how to cover this area of Joyce Boulevard with a tower. That's when they go back to their engineers and start looking at all the specifics of what they need to do to cover this particular area. And they came up in their search ring and found this piece of property, and so that's where they've come up with it, able to secure potentially a lease, compound, and area for this tower. It's about 3,000 feet northeast of the Lindsay building and the Joyce Street area that they're trying to cover. Also, when you move from that Lindsay building at 100 to 120 feet probably, and you go up to Zion, now that tower's at 150 feet, so they're actually having to increase the tower, the ultimate antenna height, to cover the same area because they're having to move north. Our concerns with this tower is that the issue is at Joyce. This is a capacity issue that they're trying to address, and based on circumstances, the result is to move the tower over half a mile to the north, and in our opinion, which is relatively residential area once you get to this point on Zion Road, away from the commercial corridor that they're attempting to cover. We don't think that a 150-foot tower would be compatible with land uses on Zion. It's almost directly adjacent to Lake Fayetteville. Lake Fayetteville Trail would be very visible, in our opinion, from the north part of that park when you're actually sitting below this elevation down by the lake. There are a variety of land uses, honestly. There's an office next door to this piece of property. It's in a house, but it's an office use. To the west is commercial, to the east is residential, to the south is residential, so there's a variety of land uses. In this particular case, we don't think it's a compatible use on this piece of property. And the third concern is how this could influence future development in the area. Zion is developed on the west side, it's developed on the east side, and it's moving towards the middle. There's quite a bit of property and redevelopment options available, and it's just a matter of time before Zion develops out. Zion's been improved, the road section's been improved, almost up to this that stops at Vantage, and there's plans to continue those improvements down to crossover, probably further increasing the probability that the redevelopment will occur in this area. What the future land use map says about this area is that it's a city neighborhood area. And that's a very wide open designation. It generally leans towards residential, but it understands that you're going to have some commercial areas or in office areas, depending on the particular street that you're on, what's going on, the context of the zone that you're in. You know, our thought is this could go residential. I think it has a pretty good likelihood of going residential in close proximity to this property, maybe even on this property. It could go a different way. The concern is if you put the tower here before development occurs, you're probably providing a disincentive for residential development. It's one of those utility structures, just like many utility structures, large towers, or whether it be power lines or a substation or anything like that, is not necessarily something desirable to have next to houses. And so our opinion is if you place this structure here in this compound here, the future development does not go towards residential, it forces it towards something else non-residential. This is ultimately going to be a three-lane street section, so it doesn't have a great deal of capacity for large quantity, large generation, traffic generators like retail development. So again, I think residential is probably what we'll see in this area, and I think this creates a problem for that future land use beyond just what's there today. So because of those reasons, we are recommending denial of the application. We have included conditions of approval, 18 conditions of approval should the Planning Commission recommend in favor of it. These are the same conditions you'll see on our last probably 3 or 4 cell towers. There's 2 determinations by the Planning Commission, but pretty much everything's laid out in the ordinance as far as how you need to develop these sites. And so the conditions are relatively straightforward for this type of application. Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant here, yeah, if you would state your name for the record, please.
My name is Tracy Gill. I work with West Tower Communications. We're a full turnkey contractor for AT&T. They do all the design from a radio standpoint. We pick it up from there and go find the sites, develop the sites, turn it back over to them for their optimization. We appreciate Jesse's input. I'll kind of run through these slides real quickly. AT&T, as you know, is licensed by the FCC to provide good service in all the markets where they hold the license. I would guess that you would probably quickly find customers of all the wireless phone companies in town who would question whether they have struggles with their infrastructure right now. AT&T has spent tens of millions of dollars in Fayetteville in developing the infrastructure that they have. However, just like a water system, a road system, or a power system, the demands by their customers, or citizens here, continue to say we want more and more and more. The FCC recognizes that, and as Jesse stated, through smartphones or wireless devices of all types, that has put a serious crunch on the capacity needs for all the wireless carriers. In this area, as Jesse said, along College or Highway 71 back into Joyce, what we have is a very dense commercial area and a dense residential area. And when I say dense there, I'm talking about multifamily with the Lindsay Apartments and then some other multifamily back through over here. But you've also got what I understand is the second busiest traffic area in the state, right here at this interchange. So you have a huge volume of vehicular traffic in addition to what we might call more stationary traffic where people are in and out of offices or in all these apartments. The growing trend is that they don't have landlines anymore. So that creates additional capacity. More to the point, this is College and Joyce here. AT&T operates off of a slick stick just to the south. There are 2 sites over here just north of the mall, as Jesse said, and there's one further down Zion to the east. The colors that you see in the pink and magenta colors down here these are set up as 3 miniature radio stations per each what we'll call tower site or antenna site. In Fayetteville, we'll call them wireless communication facility. They do that so that they can reuse the frequency that the FCC's licensed them for. if you had a omnidirectional antenna, it would send out that same frequency in all directions. Here, they break it down with sectorized or directional antennas, and they can reuse that frequency again by jumping one cell site over. So that's where their capacity fills up. In addition, AT&T has done, and we've been involved in it, helping them, they've spent millions of dollars again in all the little pieces that go into improving their infrastructure before they ever come back and ask for an additional site. So they max out how many radios or stations they can place in there. They have increasingly changed out the antennas where they'll get better antennas that allow more data or more voice calls to be transferred in and out. One of the new initiatives they're big on right now is, and it'll be coming into Fayetteville very soon, is they're replacing the radios, which customarily have been in the shelter at the base of the tower. Well, you get a little bit of loss between the antenna and that radio. The newest technology has them actually as a small radio unit that goes directly behind the antenna. And that speeds up those calls just a little bit more. Another thing they've done is they've spent a ton of money bringing fiber in to all their cell sites. Once the call is placed into the antenna site, that call gets routed through fiber back to their main switches. And that fiber will handle a much higher capacity, and it will also transfer those calls much faster than they have in the old lines that they've had. So all that infrastructure development has been ongoing and continues to be ongoing, but nonetheless, there's still areas where the capacity and the demand from the consumer says, hey, with all that being said, we're still maxed out. This sector right here is pushed all the way to the limit. So what you or I see that as is either we're trying to make a call and it's not going through, and it'll say dialing, dialing, dialing. And what it's doing is it's trying to place you in queue to where it can compress your call and zap it through real fast along with somebody else's. So it's doing that with multiple people or somebody streaming video. I think I noticed a gentleman back here and several others are online now. And that's all great, but that's sucking up some of that capacity. So that's what they're trying to get a hold of here. These two sectors shooting this way, this sector shooting north. This one over here, not so much because it is further away. There's a proportional or unproportional use of power is how they rate these things, and these colors represent that power usage. If you or I are on the phone, or if we're using our computer for data, the closer we are to the antenna, the less power that's going to take. So the further we are, even though it may be the same number of people on the phone or using that data, it's going to require a little bit more power. In the old days, it was straight coverage. If you had an antenna and you had line of sight, you had coverage. Then it became a capacity issue, and now we're more to a utilization of that power with the capacity. So what the radio engineers have said is, yeah, we need another site. This drawing here, or graph, shows the two sites. I just showed them as one over here. The one down here south of us, and then the one to the east out on Zion Road. These large circles are 1 mile rings. When we started out in our search, and we're meeting with the RF engineers and they give us a design, they simply say, here's where I need the antennas to be. Their original site was almost on top of the Lindsay building, which frankly, we looked at it and said, perfect. That's great. We know right who they are. Let's go get the rooftop. Coincidentally, though, the zoning ordinance course in Fayetteville strongly encourages us to go get on the rooftops. We know, believe me, we know we don't want to come in and ask for towers until we've exhausted every other possible structure that's out there. Let me jump back just for a second. Aside from this site, and I know that you will be interested, what else is coming? Jesse's asked this over and over. What else is coming? What else am I going to be before you potentially for in the future? Right now we have 5 what we call new sites in or right at the city of Fayetteville. This one here that we're talking about on Zion Road, we've got one down to cover the lower end of Dixon, and we've got the zoning approved now administratively to go inside of a bell tower at the University Baptist Church. That design is still being completed, and they've actually not signed off on that, but it'll be a stealth application if that's all completed. We've met with them, we've got all but our final drawings completed, and that'll be a very nice application. We looked at some other areas for rooftops in that area as well. Out on West Weddington, developing area way out west, we've actually worked with RF and smoothed and pushed and prodded and everything else, and we've got them to locate onto an existing tower out there. It's actually just outside the city limits in the county. Right up here at Dixon and College, we're also working with the county to put some antennas on the county courthouse building. And you can see that they get closer and closer together. If we're down here at the church and we're right here at the courthouse building, we've also, or AT&T has sites downtown already as well. There is one other one that would be what I'll call a raw land site or a new site where there are no structures out there presently, and that's generally at the intersection of Crossover and Mission. And that's kind of in the earlier stages. We're out looking and we're trying to see what we can do to work the best we can. They're back and forth, what I call the arguing stage with the radio guys to say what would work, really what height do you need. Back to this site, when we started here, they said the height we need, or the rad center for the antennas, needs to be 125 feet. We said, hey, the Lindsay building's not quite that high, and quite honestly, that was a while back. I don't remember the exact height that was there, but they said, well, we'll try and make that, we'll make that work. So we moved forward. After several months, our field agent Tom is here. Lindsay's ownership just finally said, we really don't want this anymore, so you guys need to move on. The center of the antennas, though, at 125 feet, in Fayetteville, because the ordinance calls out for the stealth poles, requires our antennas, instead of 3 or 4 antennas being at the same height, requires 1 up and 1 down. So you get 3 antennas at 1 height and 3 antennas inside that pole directly below it. And there's going to be a 10-foot difference. When the radio guy says, I need 125 feet, and then we tell him we have a split rad center, that means he's saying I need 125 feet and 135 feet, because he's giving us the minimum height that he's saying is what he needs up front. We had looked at a number of properties in this area, and frankly, because of the zoning ordinance, we were looking for a larger tract of land where we could hide basically the pole as best we could. We knew it would be a stealth pole. We knew we were going to have setback concerns, certainly. We knew we would have neighbors that might be concerned. The dense commercial area in here is full of properties that are just almost fully utilized. You've got small 1-story buildings with parking lots, and they go almost to the edge where they've fully maxed out that little parcel of land. You've got some open land, which is mostly owned by or controlled by the Lindsays. And they didn't want us to deal with that because they have their own plans coming in there to max out that land. They were amenable at one point to having it placed inside one of the apartment complexes, and then they kind of backed up on that as well. We migrated north, frankly, because we felt, looking at the zoning ordinance, at 125 foot, or now what was going to be becoming 135 foot, that we were, and that's the rad center, so the pole would have actually been up to 140 foot right in that area. We migrated north so that we could get up, going up that hill, going to the north towards that ridge. And Tom worked with a number of landowners. We actually send them in 3 candidates at a time. And we've pushed around in here 3 different times with the radio engineers, and they kept running all their analysis and running it, rerunning it, and rerunning it. And we had sites where the landowners were saying, yeah, put it here, put it here. But the radio guys kept coming back and saying, look, The overlap of these three circles leaves us a triangle right here. We're just north of that on Zion Road, and what we found was the area of property up here where there are older houses that have mostly been converted over to commercial uses. Further east, it's mostly open along the north side of Zion. Everything south of it is mostly residential, multifamily, either duplexes or apartments. Everything pretty much to the west, there's a couple houses there. Our parent tract owner is commercial use as well. But everything to the west is commercial, or commercial use. This is the land use map that's on the website. I don't know if you can see the red square there is our parcel. It's about 588 feet deep, and we're proposing the pole to be about 500 feet back from the road. So that property kind of goes up a little bit of a hill, goes over the knoll, and at the back it drops off into the parkland. And we've put it back just over that knoll towards the back where there's some vegetation or mature trees, and there's a spot right there where we can place it between the trees. There's a little scrub tree right in the middle. That little scrub tree will come out, but all the big mature trees can stay and help use for screening. This is the dermatology office building over here. That's the newest development of the area. There's several office buildings there, 3 or 4 story building in the back. Frankly, from a kind of an outsider's view, I don't live here in Fayetteville, but it appears, I mean, this is all developed already as multifamily. There's a commercial use in the house next door to the east, and then there's the old quarry pit that you guys know up there on Zion. Because of the cut of that land now, it'd almost be inconceivable that it'd be single-family housing. And granted, it may well be developed as multifamily housing. Frankly, I think that, based on the way it's zoned, would probably what it would be. What we know from developing these antenna sites all over, and we do them here in Arkansas, and we've managed them all over the country, development does not shy away from these cell phone antenna sites anymore. In the old days, we used to believe it did. Heaven forbid, in Little Rock, the most prominent real estate subdivision in the whole city is built around a tower farm in Chenal Mountain out there. So we see that all over the place. Certainly, the commercial use or multifamily use that would be most likely developed around this probably won't have any bearing from, and certainly our landowner thinks that as well, from an antenna site that the compound will be 40 foot by 40 foot in the back. The staff has, as you heard, recommended a denial based on their zoning ordinance. We know we have to come in and get a conditional use for an antenna site anywhere in the city. What we believe we've done is a good job of finding that spot in this area where it's back off the road in the least intrusive area. And the antenna height did get a little bit taller because we're still trying to shoot down into that area and offset those other sectors. We got photo sims. I don't know if they were in your package or not. I think they probably were. Basically, we did hire a crane to go out there and set the crane up. And this was back before the leaves came up on the trees. I think in your package you'd be able to see the photo sims. We've got them here with the crane, with the pole drawn in there so it's all the right height. And you just really can't hardly see it back there in the trees. But let me see here, not to belabor your meeting. Property's 588 feet deep. We're about 500 feet north of Zion Road. We're 50 feet in from the eastern boundary, and we're about 190 feet from the western boundary of the site. Again, the specific site has trees pretty much all around it, especially to the north. It drops off further downhill there. Will you be able to see this thing? Yeah. What it's going to look like is the high power tension poles that come out of that substation right next to the multifamily just south of Zion Road. There's a power line that runs west. Right out of that power line, it comes up, crosses Zion Road right there just west of Lowe's, and heads on to the west. This pole is like the other ones you've seen around. It's just a steel pole. It'll be painted white at the request of the city ordinance. And then the top will have what we call a radio invisible radon up there to hide the antennas. It will be built with 5 center lines, so you'll have capacity for 3 carriers in there. It is permittable on this property by your conditional use designed by your ordinance. And certainly the citizens of Fayetteville deserve the infrastructure just like they do in the water or the roads or the power systems. Their radio or wireless systems need to be updated as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. If we have any, we'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to speak to this item? If you would state your name for the record.
Aubrey Shepard.
Aubrey loves cell towers.
I think that when even I, as old, as worn out as I am, is carrying a cell phone, we need more towers, so let us have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard.
Excuse me, can you come up and repeat that, sir?
Is there anybody else to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Is there any comments?
Mr. Chair, I think I have a question for Mr. Shepard. No, I'm just kidding. Question for staff. Is it my understanding that the root of staff's opposition to this is because staff thinks this area will go residential and not commercial?
I think we had 3 points. One is just the existing land uses up there right now. They are commercial to the west, they're residential to the south and east. The property we're on, the one next to it, they're houses that have been converted into some type of non-residential use. I'm not even familiar with what is being operated on this property really. I know the one next door is an office because we have a file on that. 2, the problem area is 3,000 feet to the south. It's a busy commercial corridor that they're trying to provide capacity for and the businesses in that area. And so I feel like the 150-foot tower on Zion for a solution that can be solved at 100 and 110 feet at Joyce, that's where the solution should occur, is at the point of the problem. And then 3, this area may become residential in the future. It may become non-residential, but if you put the tower there now, the likelihood of it becoming residential decreases.
Okay, clarify something for me. You said that the tower being 3,000 feet north of the busy intersection, which is what they're trying to cure, and so the answer is down there at that intersection. Where are you proposing they would put such a tower? If Lindsay has said no, and the other building owners around there have said no, what is it you would propose to the applicant?
I don't know that I have a perfect site selection. Honestly, I couldn't answer that just from a technical standpoint of what would actually work. A tower could work down there, and exactly what proximity based on what the engineering study show, that would narrow it down. I mean, I don't know if there's a property available or not. I don't know.
One of the things we also feel like needs to be more thoroughly evaluated is when you do get into more urban situations like this in larger cities, once you have the coverage from the basic cell tower, then to really improve the capacity, you see a lot of communities doing microcells, which are just smaller antenna that you put on like the wall of a building, on the outside of a building, you put them on light poles. So I'm not an expert on it at all, but we feel like we didn't get enough information from the applicant showing why that is not a possible option here, which I think as you start getting more and more capacity throughout this town, as you go to urban centers like your, really big metropolitan areas, that's the type of technology you see where you're not having to have a whole nother tower, but you may have to have multiple antennas along the whole corridor, which we feel like that alternative could be a feasible one.
Well, that brings me to a question for the applicant then. Yeah, Mo? Well, I think what Andrew is saying is in more urban environments, they've gone to more antennas, so to speak, smaller antennas, more antennas located on the sides of buildings, top of buildings, or whatever, because of this same situation, and that staff had not gotten any information from you of why that was not a possibility. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's typically two different types of sites or systems that they're asking about basically, and I should have hit this, I had it on my list. One's called a DAS system, or a distributed antenna system. There's one of those in Razorback Stadium. It's a series of little antennas, what we'd call sometimes in building. When you go into Razorback Stadium, your phone will switch out of the cell sites that are surrounding the stadium, and there's, I think, 180 antennas. Or,
yeah, well, mine won't.
If you want to look at it as 180 miniature cell sites throughout that stadium. And they're all maxed out so that they've got the highest efficiency shooting that signal back and forth. So when that stadium's full of people, I mean, you may have sat in there in a ball game, what was it, 2 years ago when that system came online, everybody in the stadium knew it because you couldn't get a call out or you couldn't get a text out. And all of a sudden, wow, you can now talk on the phone if you can hear over the crowd. That's a DAS system. It's designed either as an in-building system where you have a lot of people in a real confined area, or a pedestrian setup. For example, in an airport. The airport in Cincinnati, in Kentucky there, Cincinnati Greater International Airport, was one of the first systems, like in Atlanta, because they have the underground tunnel system. Mm-hmm. The antennas that were shooting the signal into the airport were off the airport property. The airport got wise and said, hey, why don't we become the antenna system for the airport? And they put their own little miniature phone system in there for the tunnels. And essentially it worked at the time like a microcell or kind of like a DAS system. It was in the earlier stages. When you went through that airport, your phone would actually start roaming on the airport's phone system. If you go to Las Vegas, you go down the strip today, and there you got hundreds of thousands of people everywhere. And when you go in and out of the casinos, same idea. The difference is you have a tremendous number of people, not like you have in Fayetteville, not like anywhere in Arkansas for that matter. They don't have, other than in a building or in a setup like that, we don't have them in Arkansas.
So in other words, that's the next level up.
Jesse asked, is that coming? Once you place this antenna at this location, how long will it be before you come back to us and say, hey, we're maxed out at that location again? And the answer is, we don't know. Technology does evolve. Your ordinance actually, in one of the conditions of the 18, which we're in agreement with all 18 conditions. One of those is, if this site at 150 feet becomes obsolete, I'm paraphrasing, that it would be reduced to the minimal height necessary or it'd be removed altogether. And AT&T's agreed to that. The microcell concept is not quite going so far as a DAS system, but it basically is a miniature cell site that's only going to cover a very small area. When we talk about them being mounted on the side of a building, my wife's from Boston, or just south of Boston, and we go up there vacationing out to Cape Cod and all, and when you're in an urban city like Boston, she gets mad at me because I'm spotting cell sites everywhere on the corners of the buildings. Well, you can be downtown, and there's an in-building coverage for when you go in that office building that's enormous, but when you're on the sidewalk out on the street, there's a miniature cell site that's only covering that intersection. And the fact is there's so many people walking everywhere that maxes out that site. So you get to the alley on your way to the next block, and there's another antenna, it's the next system. You get to the next corner, it's another cell site. So
they're for pedestrian-oriented areas as opposed to
vehicle. Yes, but and I have to be careful because I don't want to mislead you. I think of it in terms of pedestrian area. Most of the examples I've given you, it doesn't have to be pedestrian. What it has to be is a real dense use. At Joyce and College, that's a highly mobile traffic area, even on Joyce going back and forth. It's not the density level that you see when they have those applications. It's a good question, and it may be at some point in the future that AT&T will come back. there are places, not this mall, we don't have the traffic in that mall alone, but there's malls around the country that in the mall, they would have a system separate from outside the mall. And in this case, the antennas that are shooting and covering the mall itself, they're busy, but it's that one to the south shooting north that's just crazy maxed out. Now, I've got the board back there. By placing the antenna originally on the Lindsay building and then migrating northward, by migrating northward, there's 3 antenna sites directionally from each antenna, or from each tower site, if you will. They can spin those by aiming what they call the azimuths of the antennas. So we can get 2 of those sectors shooting down into the busy area where we're at. And again, what we believed was with a site that's less obtrusive because it's hidden in the trees, as opposed to being right down there in the middle of the office buildings where everybody's going to see the pole.
What about the Toys R Us area, where the bookstore is and all that? Did you check on that to see if...
We did early on, and frankly, the radio engineers kept nixing all that. Because
Why?
we thought, well, the building's a little bit higher, it's going uphill, it's a tall building, it's 1 story, but it's tall. We thought that may work. The biggest problem there is the sector that shoots north is a dead sector at that point, because it shoots right into the trees and you'd get no benefit from that at all, other than what's right there immediately adjacent to it.
Well, if you place it up there on the hilltop, or whatever, the hillside above the lake or whatever, what benefit are you getting to the north of that?
Well,
Springdale?
Yeah, it dribbles out to Springdale. That was a question Jesse asked early on. There's benefit there. Is it benefit the city of Fayetteville? Not really.
Okay.
But what it benefits the city of Fayetteville is that it's pushed up and hidden in the trees. That's the sole reason it's there. If we go west, we tried to get on the roof of that dermatology building. And we got all excited. Hey, RF, bounce us all around. We were a little bit west of that even, and the radio engineers kept studying it and said it's too far west. If you draw those circles like I had from the site to the east and the sites to the west where they overlap, because it's a capacity issue, you really got to get almost dead center of those things for it to be most optimum. Now, we are a little bit north of what we would agree is most optimum, but the trade-off is we're not putting this pole crammed in on a 1-story office building in a side yard that's already maxed out, most likely it's setbacks.
What about Lowe's? They didn't...
Way too far west.
Yeah,
the dermatology building right there just below the C and the U.
Gotcha.
That's too far west. I mean, we were going parcel by parcel at that point.
Gotcha. Well,
I look forward to the day that we can come, because we'll make the planners so happy. We come in and say, let's go on the light poles. And I believe someday that day will come. We don't even see that in the foreseeable future in Arkansas. I mean, it's probably out there. We can believe that or think that and hope that because we've seen it in more dense areas. The capacity is going to have to get greatly increased, in order for that to happen, is essentially where that'll probably boil down to.
Thank you. As far as, unfortunately, cell towers are kind of like wider roads and garbage cans in front of your house, or more stoplights. They're all necessary evils. Living just south of this area and being very familiar with the properties in that area and how they're currently being used, and those properties that are for sale, what the expected use of those properties will be. None of those properties that I know of up there are priced in such a way where they would be conducive for residential development. I think that it's possible that we may get some residential development just to the west of the intersection of Old Missouri Road and Zion Road, but I don't think it's going to go very far. I definitely see that area between there's a section in there that is got a pond or small lake, whatever, on the north side of Zion Road.
Yeah.
I can see that area and maybe a little bit to the west of that being residential property, but knowing what it's listed for, I don't see how that's even going to be residential property, and it's been for sale for quite some time. But I really don't see the properties to the west of there redeveloping out into residential. I just don't see it. And to me, you know, if we've got to have these things, that's probably about as good a spot as any. So unless I hear something differently, I'm in support of it.
Mr. Williams?
I just want to make sure the applicant realize that as a conditional use request, instead of having a majority vote of the members that are here, it actually requires a majority vote of the entire commission, which would be 5 members. So we have 6 members here tonight, which means that you would have to win at least 5 out of 6 to prevail. So it is optional with you to go forward or to wait until the other 3 commissioners who are not here tonight would be here, so that, because your vote total of 5, what doesn't change to how many commissioners are here or not. I just wanted to make sure you understood that.
May I ask a question, Kit? If they were not successful here, or excuse me, if they chose to table this tonight, it would be on the next meeting, which will be, when is the next meeting?
July 8th?
July 8th, so that's 3 weeks away, something like that? 2
weeks.
Is it 2 weeks away? Okay, 2 weeks away. I know that every now and then there's a month where they get an extra week in there. And so so their option would be to table it tonight, and then they would definitely be heard again 2 weeks from tonight, and probably with more members of the commission. Or if they chose to go through with this tonight and were denied for some reason, they could appeal it to the council naturally.
That's correct.
And so when would they be on the council's agenda?
But appealing conditional use is very, very difficult to the council because it requires 3 aldermen to appeal a conditional use, 3 out of 8. Only thing that appeals to the city council more than 1 alderman is conditional use. So it would require both the aldermen for this ward, which I guess is Ward 3, and then another alderman. So it's a very difficult appeal to the city council.
I didn't know that part.
There potentially could be a motion to reconsider, but that would have to be on someone that voted no. They'd have to ask to have it reconsidered. So that's just, I just want to let you know the required vote that would be here tonight might be that you're going to be unanimous. I don't know. I haven't heard any any commissioner saying they don't like it, but I would be listening if I were you in the back, in case you happen to hear that. And if you hear a couple of them saying they're not going to vote for it, then I think you ought to really consider tabling it.
So it might be nice if
Mr. Chair.
commissioners kind of told their feelings about it. Sorry.
Well, I went and looked at this site this weekend, and it is quite a ways back from the road, and the hillside drops off quite quickly down into gullies, and then you're pretty well into the park. And I felt like it was fairly well screened. I think it's a bit tough to say how everything's going to develop out there, but I think people are becoming a little bit more okay with living near cell towers. It's not really a game changer that much for development as much as it once was. I think we're just sort of getting immune to them, unless they're just killing us. I don't know.
Well, I think the flagpoles have made a big difference,
Yeah.
as opposed to the tower with all the giant
All the stuff
antenna
on it.
arrays on them.
Yeah, it's I like the slick stick.
Welcome to the new normal.
With a fake pine tree.
So I'll be voting to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
In all fairness to the applicant, I too looked at the site today and looked at a topo map, and I think that area is around 1,300 feet approximately, plus another 150-foot tower on top of that. And I know they're white and they're painted, but if you're coming from from Springdale south into Fayetteville, I mean, to me, when you say unobtrusive, I don't think that term fits at all. So it's a 150-foot tower. It's in an existing residential area. It's in the existing of a potential residential area. It's above the primary elevation of Lake Fayetteville. You got the Lake Fayetteville area, the park area, the trail system. I can't support it, so you may want to have that in your consideration.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I think the applicant's presentation tonight allayed a lot of my concerns with it, so I would support the application.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I've driven by this, I drive by this site all the time, and I went out and checked it out. And I appreciate the photographs you included that show, I mean, even if it is winter, you show kind of what it will look like. But, you know, I do think I know it's going to be visible. I think that it's something that people will learn to live with. And, you know, I've tried to visualize it from Lake Fayetteville and Springdale, and I know you're going to see it, but I still think it's something that's needed, and I'll be in support of this.
And then there was one.
Can I throw this in before you speak?
Sure.
The state has a historic preservation office down in Little Rock, the State Historic Preservation Office. We call it the SHPO office. Part of our approval process is to gain federal approval. They look to the local state for their support of an antenna site. The SHPO office, in this case, has approved this site. I bring that up for this reason. This same exact pole, we were trying to put a site right immediately adjacent to Petit Jean Mountain. And the SHPO office initially said, whoa, this is Satan coming after us here. And we went to work. It was a slick stick. Originally it wasn't. And we proposed the flagpole site up there. The woman from the State Historic Preservation Office finally went up there one day and had lunch at the Rockefeller Center and saw the site exactly where we were talking about, if you will, overlooking the state park. The local state park office supported it. The businesses around there supported it. The neighborhood association supported it. Everybody supported it there because they knew they needed that coverage and the phone capacity even there. And when she saw what we were talking about with the slick stick or the flagpole setup, I wasn't there, but what I understand she said is, oh, I completely misunderstood that. I only bring that up is to say the photo sims that we did for that site, and they had, I think, 13 historic locations that they were concerned about. We sent a photographer in, commercial photographer, and we did a balloon test, shot the balloon up there. It was all verified at the right height. We had to tether it with fishing lines to keep it in the right spot. The guy went right at sunrise in order for there to be no wind. The only spot, because of the density of the trees, that you could see that pole was from across the lake. So your point of, and Jesse, you made this point before as well, on the north side of the lake looking across, yeah, that's when you're going to see that pole. We had to magnify that photo 4 times before they could see the pole in the horizon above the treetops. It was there, but from on the lake looking up, and it would be a similar setup. It was, I don't know how far it is from this pole across the north side of the lake. When you're on the south side of the lake, you're in the trees, and you simply can't see out of the trees to see it. The closer you are to it, when you're in the trees, the worse it is to see it, you know, if you're looking for it. Across the lake, you're far enough away. When you come down College, you're far enough away, it's just a pole. It's just going to almost visually disappear because it's so skinny to begin with. But, I mean, your point's valid, and we hear that. That's part of what we're thinking. And frankly, that's part of why we thought that site was a much better site than having it down in the commercial area, crammed in amongst all the buildings, where everybody's saying, man, I don't want it that far from my building. You know, that was the thinking behind it, but I'll be quiet.
Now will be the silent
No,
chairman.
well,
so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say I've generally detested cell phone towers in all my years in city government, but, they have gotten better. I do prefer shorter towers, though, I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of the 150-foot towers. But the single monopole, whatever you wanna call it, is a much better application than what we've seen in the past. I think people are a little more appreciative of that, definitely, than they were of the crazy ones that we used to have. So I'll probably end up supporting it, even though I'm not a big fan of it, but I'll probably end up supporting it anyway, so there you go.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, I'd like to make a motion to, before I do this, did you want us to table it?
Well, I think that we'll probably just move forward.
Okay.
I appreciate your input. And I especially appreciate you giving me that heads up.
So I'll move to approve conditional use permit 13-4365 for Tricon, finding in favor of the determination regarding the stealth technology using the slick stick, and finding in favor of determination of adequate vegetation for screening the facility, and the other 18 conditions of approval.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Garner?
Autry?
No.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
After you, the new Hoskins.
What are you talking about, man?
I thank you, and I thank Jesse for all the work you put into this as well.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me a phone, Jim. Okay. All right. Old business. Let's see. On the right one, yep. ADM 13-4330. Submitted by Crafton and Toll for property located at southwest corner of 15th Street and Razorback Road.
Really?
Property is on urban thoroughfare and contains approximately 4.42 acres. The request is for a variance of the streamside protection zones, parking lot landscaping, and parking in the Bill 2 zone. I guess we'll start.
Save the easiest for last.
Yeah. I guess we'll start with Andrew.
All right. This item has been on the Planning Commission agenda several times, and there've been quite a few meetings back and forth with the applicant and staff. And I don't think I'll give a full presentation tonight, and I think all the commissioners know what variances have been requested. I will just go straight into the conditions of approval. With this particular version that the applicant is proposing, staff is in support of all of the variances being requested. I did want to make one correction that's kind of in your packet that the applicant pointed out to me. There's a letter that's in your packet dated March, and I believe that it references, there's also a memo in there that references them using porous concrete and some different other types of stormwater management techniques. And they're not proposing to do that. That has been outdated. So what you see in the conditions of approval here is still valid, but that original letter and that memo from several months ago is no longer valid. But going into this particular site, we do feel like the variances are warranted. Condition of approval number 1 is the determination of the variance to be in the streamside protection zone. And we do have the City Floodplain Administrator, Sarah Reed, here. She can explain her recommendations on all the different conditions here about bioretention and the stream and riparian enhancement plan, and all the other different recommendations on that condition. Condition of approval number 2 is 15 feet of green space between the street and the parking lot along Razorback Road. There's still less than 15 feet of green space, and the urban forester is in support of that. The applicant did provide some documentation that the State Highway Department will allow trees to be planted in the right-of-way, I believe, so that has addressed her concerns. Or no, that was on Razorback Road, sorry, not 15. Condition of approval number 3 is to allow for some of the street trees along Razorback Road to be planted and planting green space strip instead of in the actual sidewalk. They're actually going to be developing what we would call kind of an urban form with a wide sidewalk in the building close to the street, and that's a particular landscape requirement. You have to put the trees in urban tree wells, which we don't feel like would be appropriate in the trail in this setting. Condition of approval number 4, the applicant is proposing to plant parking lot trees and a tree lawn. The minimum width of a tree lawn to allow a tree to survive, I guess, under our code is 8 foot wide, and they're proposing to be about 6 foot wide. So that's a variance of that landscape code. And the urban forester again is in support of this variance request with a condition that they plant more trees than is required by ordinance. And they've actually counted 45 parking lot trees, and so that's in their condition of approval, and it's also shown on the applicant's landscape plan. Condition of approval number 5 is putting parking lots in the Build 2 zone, and the applicant's proposing a 32-inch masonry screen wall to screen the parking that is going to be closer to the street than is allowed. Condition of approval number 6 is the parking lot drive aisles are proposed to be narrower than would be allowed. The code says they have to be at least 24 foot wide to turn into a 90-degree stall. They're proposing some of these spaces to be between 22 foot wide drive aisle and up to 27 feet when they're next to the building to allow for a ladder truck, fire truck. But anyway, that's condition of approval number 6. Condition of approval number 7, curb cut separation variance along 15th Street. This is not really related to the stream side, but it's a development variance that they're looking for at this point. And we do support it, finding that in order to get the access point on 15th Street in the right location, there would be some sort of variance required. Condition of approval number 8 is the Planning Commission's determination to allow for parallel parking spaces on 15th Street. And that is classified as a principal arterial, which carries higher volumes of traffic. So it's not a typical condition to have parallel parking along an arterial like this, but we do recommend it in this case. There's a stop sign right in this area. It's fairly slow traffic speed. So that summarizes the variances, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I guess applicants.
Yes, my name is Jonathan Ely. I'm with Craft and Toll,
Thank you.
representing our project tonight. I think Andrew covered most of the high points in there. I just really want to thank Andrew and all the staff. I know we had several meetings on this, and I think we've gotten to a point where we're happy with where we stand, and we think it's a good project and are ready to move forward with it. Since the last time you saw it, I think the biggest changes are that we've pulled all the pavement out of that streamside zone 1. And we've alleviated some of those concerns as far as tree heat island effect and things like that by providing that lawn strip and things like that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of these variances that you might have.
So you guys are good with all the conditions as they're
We are.
listed? Yep. Okay. Thank you. And
Thanks.
I forgot, Sarah, I'm sorry. If you don't mind weighing in on some of your comments, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we were, I think based on the meeting when we discussed this, we were working towards no parking or paving within Zone 1, and the applicant did get it all removed from Zone 1. There will be small amounts of grading and a portion of a retaining wall that are still in Zone 1. The mitigation is similar to what it's been all along. It's bioretention basins, it's planting the other open areas that don't have trees in them now that will still be open, and it's doing what's described in that letter at the end of the packet within the creek area with invasive removal and enhancing that stream corridor. And if you have any questions.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right, we'll get back to you. Does anybody in the public like to speak to this? Uh-oh, he's got a computer.
It's the cell tower guy.
They don't have a cell tower on this one, do they?
Would you like
Yes,
to?
we have to have a cell tower. Aubrey Shepherd, we need a cell tower for this.
So you're as in favor as this is your cell tower, isn't it?
Well, I've griped every time I knew you were making any variances on streamside ordinance. And I still don't believe, once it was passed, first it should have had a 100-foot barrier from a stream side. And I see Kip looking like, sure. Well, some cities it would be. But anyway, so given that you're going to vary these things quite often, my philosophy is to suggest things that will help to make them better. And we've got staff members trying to do that. But there should be minimal soil disturbance in a place like this. Well, if you know this lot as I do, I've been making pictures of the wildflowers out there on that lot because it's a wet prairie site. And over the years, I've been doing it since before Baum Stadium was built. And so it's still got, in spite of all the baseball games and football games and some of the basketball games, when we have people parking on this property, I mean solid parking. If you drive by there, or some of you may come down there to park and catch the bus up to the game sites. But incredible as it may seem, there are native plants out there right now in bloom after having their roots crushed year after year. And this is part of the reason that we need to we need to landscape with natural plants that are already on the site and add some more as appropriate. And I think they've promised to utilize experts to do some of that work to improve the stream. But the ones that are there right now are so important to protect because they proved they will live there. So similar to, well, some of you may remember Chesney Prairie over near Siloam Springs. They dug up a highway right away by trimming out at a certain depth, the roots and so forth to get all the native plants, rolled them up, took them over on Chesney Prairie from the extension of the highway, and rolled it out on this old pasture land that hadn't had any native plants growing in years. And guess what? They came up that spring. Guess what else, if you haven't heard this? That stretch along the highway that they took them from, they came back from the roots there too. And so they just had to finally pave over that part. But the point is, the native, particularly perennial plants, are very powerful and they will grow through concrete. And this year, because there was not a regional baseball tournament in town, they did not mow it off, they didn't park on it at the last minute. So native plants primarily come forth on the prairies in the summer months. April, they start coming up, May, and in June, depending on the rain, some of them grow 2 feet in 2 weeks and get up there and they flower and go to seed as rapidly as possible. And if things go right, they stay that way for probably generations, the same plants, same roots in some places. And certainly we know that with trees, but there are several things that are required by ordinance that, well, you can't see the wildflowers there. But I made a set this week with, or in the last week, of things that you can see from this site. And let me click on this very rapidly here, if you'll pardon me, and show you.
So, Mr. Shepherd, are you suggesting they do something?
Yes, sir. I'm suggesting that they try to try to utilize and get their contractor that'll be doing this work on that aspect of it to utilize some of these plants. And I'll actually show you a picture that another person made of me out there showing him some of those native plants. If I can remember how to operate this thing from the side. Anyway, in that one picture, this is Baptisia alba. And this is Baptisia alba. There's more of it there than on some of the protected prairie parcels in our state. Milkweed, the plant that the monarch butterfly has to have for its caterpillars. And by the way, almost nobody in Arkansas right now has seen monarchs this year. They're just about wiped out. But if we have milkweed for them, you will see them again in the future. So those are seed pods. These plants weren't up a month ago, hardly. They were just showing up, and they've already flowered for a few days and gone to seed. And as soon as those pods turn brown and start to split, then you can harvest them, take the seed, plant them somewhere else. But the key thing, because those are based on those deep roots, would be that if this is approved, that the builders would help probably with their construction machinery to actually dig up some of this, because you couldn't go dig it. You feel that soil right now? It is the black, rich prairie soil that you find in a wet prairie. But it's so compacted by all these vehicles parking on it for all these years. But these things are coming up. In the case of that milkweed, if you go look down that center line, see the white road there? Milkweed's growing right out of there. And it's partially graveled. It's just, you'd say it's impossible to grow it. You couldn't garden there with most things. But native perennials will struggle to survive and reproduce. And our native insects, such as monarchs, in the case of milkweed. And there are certain things. Also in this set of pictures, it's at the top of my Flickr site right now. Got quite a few bumblebees. And bumblebees are one of the few species that can utilize Baptisia alba for nectaring, because they get their little noses in there. You'll see them open those little shells and go in there. Got some pictures of that. But anyhow, I'll try to get them. Also, so it's important to keep as much natural as possible, because this is not, in many places this lot would be unbuildable, except when we made this ordinance, those of us who spoke for and against it and so forth, one of the things is they said, well, the city didn't want to make a lot unbuildable for an owner. And we've already seen some of your variances have been based on that, I think. Places that were clearly in the floodplain have been allowed to be built on. So anyhow, I see it as a possibility if they do the things that have been discussed and promised, and that they utilize the expert advice, that maybe, well, some of the other things are the swales, the retention areas paralleling the stream. These things should use the native soil, not be dug out and filled in with something else, but just let it soak in there, because these are recharge areas. These kind of places are where the groundwater is recharged from surface water. And upstream from there, there is, it's several blocks just below and behind the Revenue Office, there's a Corps of Engineers protected site that was put in there. That's the same stream that went all the way down there. Mr. Hoskins is familiar with that part of that land.
What land?
From the Revenue Office, and anyway, so that's a stream that comes from way up there and gathers water from all sides. And it's very important that it do its part to help keep Beaver Lake watershed clean and provide for some of the wild things and provide for the health of our citizens. And so if you approve it, I think the strictest requirements of supervision and utilization of the lowest impact techniques possible would make it a benefit to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Yes, sir.
I would like to thank the staff and the applicant also for getting this project where they could actually recommend approval to you. We had many meetings with it. The staff was very clear that all of the parking had to be removed from the streamside zone. It put a real crimp, obviously, in this development to try to get enough parking places to do that, but they did accomplish that, assuming you all approved the variances to allow the parking along the street and the other things. I think that this project now is going to be a good project if you allow it to go forward. The tree lawn through the middle of the parking lot, I think, will be very beneficial to provide shade. Just a whole line of trees that will be providing shade throughout that entire parking lot, especially in the afternoon. And hopefully there'll be trees also on the outside of the parking lot to the west of the parking lot that will provide further shade. And so I just think that Sarah's work and Andrew and Jeremy worked very hard on this, as well as our urban forester, Megan Dale, looked at this very carefully and to protect the interests of the citizens, but also to try to make it where this project could succeed. I do agree with Aubrey. I would love to see some of the native plants saved and maybe moved into closer to the creek where the land will not be disturbed and where they would be able to grow in the future. And I do applaud the applicant for hiring the experts who helped us with streamside issues early on and have worked for the city to repair streamsides in the past and very successfully. So I just think staff really went out of their way to work very hard on this and to make it where we are business friendly and work very hard to make sure that this could be something they could recommend to you. So I wanted to thank staff for that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to hang on that very sentiment and just say that that our streamside protection ordinance really makes projects look and function very differently than they otherwise would. And even when we have many variances granted to a project, the effect of the streamside protection ordinance is huge in making these projects so much better, and really forces the developers and the city staff to get together and work out problems and come up with solutions and be creative. And you know, it's hard to do, but I think it's just fantastic, you know, what you guys can work out together. And so I really applaud what you're doing. And so I had just one question about if it's reasonable to add a let's I have to find exactly where it was in here. Staff has several bullet points that speak to how the project should be done, and as far as the bioretention areas and the repairing enhancements and that sort of thing. Would it be appropriate to add to that Planning Commission requests that the developers salvage, store, and replant some of the existing native plants with their roots?
I think that could be subsection H of condition of approval number 1, which talks about the streamside protection zones. I don't think that would be that difficult to say some. Obviously, you can't save all of the plants, but I think that
Let me ask, could Ms. Formica, do you mind coming up and kind of giving us a...
This is my first time to come up here. So, but anyway...
You speak into the microphone.
We usually look at a site and look for the native plants that are there. and then we try to salvage them. In this case, our part is like along the stream. So what we can do is work with Craft and Toll and look at the entire site and go ahead and flag areas where they're going to be developing and go ahead and make plans to use those. If that's what you guys would like to see. I mean, that would be fantastic. And the fact that Aubrey's gone out there, because the plants, they're not always blooming or they're dormant at times. So the fact that Aubrey's gone out there and identified some plants, right now we can go ahead and go back out there and GPS those areas.
Oh, cool.
In case when we're building, you know, we wouldn't necessarily be able to see them.
Yeah, right.
And then his idea about using the soils in the bioretention areas is a fantastic idea. So that's something, again, we do that on our own sites when we do stream restoration, but this is a great opportunity to work with the developers and take that soil that, I don't know what would happen to it, but, you know, make sure it goes into the bioretention areas.
Excellent.
Okay.
I'll add that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
You done? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Did you want to comment
Well,
on that?
I was just going to add that in the letter that Sandy had kind of summarized the project plans for that. You know, we do go into some detail about, you know, that area being City of Fayetteville property, and that any of those improvements will be reviewed and approved by, you know, staff Sarah, and so those things will be reviewed at that time too. So we'll have another opportunity to make sure of those things then.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Tracy?
Sure. Glenn, a couple questions. By our code, isn't there a ratio, actually I got a few questions for you. Isn't there a ratio of 17-foot parking spaces or not? I mean, you can have all of them in the parking lot 17 feet, or you can have so many percentage of them 17 feet?
I'm going to defer that to planning staff. That's a planning
Okay,
ordinance.
thanks.
Yeah. The code allows for parking spaces to be 17 foot as long as they have 2 foot overhang over green space. So that's allowed by right to go to 17-foot stalls.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then while we're at it, what is the minimum drive aisle width in a parking lot with 90-degree parking?
24 foot wide.
And so we've got one on here that's 23 feet. Then we've got one across that's 27 feet. Would it be a stupid question to ask why that row of parking wasn't shifted to make both of those drive aisles conform?
Yeah, certainly not a stupid question. No, good question. Once the building gets over a certain height, they have to have enough width of a drive aisle to have a ladder truck next to it. And the minimum width is 26 foot wide. And I don't remember exactly why this dimension is 27 instead of 26, but
It's a back of curb to back of curb measurement, so it's 26 feet clear width from face of curb to face of curb, and 22 instead of the 23 that you're seeing. That's a back to back, so it'll be 22 feet.
No, you just confused me. You said back to back. Of
back
curbs? There's no
correct.
curbs.
Well, but the way we measure those, we typically.
You talking about stall to stall? You talking about?
Stall to stall, which is typically measured from face of curb to face of curb, would be 22 feet. So the 24 that he mentioned, all of our standard ones are shown to be 25 feet back to back, which when you take a 6-inch curb off of each side of the aisle.
So this is really a 2-foot variance that they have requested.
Correct.
Okay.
But, and they are correct, that 26 feet clear is required by the fire department adjacent to those buildings.
Okay. And the all these parking spaces on the west side of this project, none of them are labeled as far as the depth. Should I assume that all these parking spaces are 17 feet deep?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay, then, so we're also asking for a variance of the width of the tree lawn from 8 feet to 6 feet. Then we've got 17-foot parking spaces facing both sides of that tree lawn. So you'll lose 2 feet of overhang on each side, so you actually have 2 feet down the center for trees. that
Yeah,
right?
and that did come up in our meeting when we had the group meeting with Megan about the concern of, cars hitting trees and things like that because that is narrower than what you would typically see. I think we can arrange these in a fashion to where they're between parking stalls, stall lines, so that a car, wouldn't be licensed, their license plate wouldn't be headed right into it. And I think we can space those out. On average, these are shown on this landscape plan at 20 feet on center. 2 parking stalls in a row, 9-foot parking stalls is 18 feet. So as long as we're in that 18-foot on center planning, I think we could make it work.
That definitely makes me feel better about it. You're talking about putting the trees at the corners of the parking stall stripes.
Correct.
So that, and putting it at 18 feet on center instead of 20 feet on center.
Correct.
So that they all fall on those stripes, and so the cars are actually parking between the trees as opposed to bumping into them.
Correct.
That just leads me to one other question. People get out of their cars and they're trying to get from this west parking stall to that building. So where do they cross? They're not going to cross where their cars are, and now they can't cross where the trees are. So how do they get to the building?
Well, I think that would be something, the users of this property are going to be primarily students that aren't going to be, they're not going to be using their cars on a daily basis, so they may, but it's not going to be like a commercial center where you'd have a lot of pedestrian traffic in and out. A lot of them are going to be using transit and things like that. So the parking that's here is, I think we view it as more long-term, type parking, and so that really wasn't a concern for us. I think the users will get used to it after this day.
Make their own path kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, from a planning point of view, I don't know, the parking looks like a potential disaster for me. I know I probably wouldn't park there, but it's just an opinion. That's all I had.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Okay, sure.
So, we're going to move to approve administrative item 13-4330 for southwest corner of 15th Street and Razorback Road. That's what we're calling it. And adding to the conditions of approval, number 1, we'll call it H, that the developer will salvage, store, and replant some existing native plants with their roots. And I, that some of the existing soils will be used in the bioretention areas. I think that's vague enough.
And with all other variances?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Approved.
All other conditions of approval, of which there are 8.
Second.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One more quick question. On this plan, your tree lawn, are these raised curbs? Or is it in the?
We haven't decided that yet, but I think there's an opportunity to be able to create some sort of water quality feature and treatment, sort of a depressed island instead, but we haven't analyzed that far. I certainly think that if we do try and do something like that, there'll need to be some more further vehicle protection, either bumper stops or.
Well, won't that change your dimensioning? I mean, if you haven't planned this for curbs, and you go and you add curbs, isn't that going to change your dimensions across this parking lot?
Yes, it's planned. It's drawn with curbs.
Okay, I guess
so
that's.
it's kind of a worst case scenario. So if we did remove the curbs, we would gain a little bit of space.
Then you'd have to have the bumpers to keep them from running into trees.
Correct. Or we may do a combination where we just got curb cuts in that curb, every so often to allow that stormwater into those areas.
Yeah, that was actually my question. If it's drawn with curbs, if it's not drawn with curbs, isn't that going to change your dimensioning? And so what we're looking at is not what's going to be built. Or B, if it is drawn with curbs, have you considered something along that lines as far as curbless with the bumps or what have you to gain more space for the trees in the lawn? That's kind of where I was going with that, but whatever. Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we got a motion and a second. Mr. Garner.
Autry?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. All right, last item. Under new business, I guess.
We got new business?
No, it's new business.
New business. ADM 13-4408, submitted by city planning staff, the bicycle parking code adjustments. This request is to amend chapter 172 to revise the bicycle rack location requirements and review.
Denied.
I guess you're the only staff member left, so it's all yours.
You're on your own.
Okay. This is a pretty minor change, I think, to the bike rack parking requirements. We're just requesting that the code be changed to allow for 6 foot separation from a bicycle rack to a fire hydrant. Right now the code says 15 feet. And the fire code actually requires 3 foot clear around fire hydrants. So we're still building in some extra clearance to still meet fire code. And the fire marshal has reviewed it and they are okay with it. And so we recommend this be forwarded to city council if the commission is comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Forwarded with recommendation of approval.
Right.
Anybody in the audience want to comment on the bicycle racks? No?
Step right up.
Make it quick.
We need good bicycle racks all over town.
I agree.
But should we take the old ones and replant them in new areas?
I would not dig up a bike rack to replace it. I would just add more. Better ones.
Do you ride a bike,
Because those
Aubrey?
old perennials
Do you ride a bike?
will stand a long time.
Do you ride a
You'll
bike?
leave them in the ground.
You don't even ride a bike, do you? You don't even own a bike, do you?
Yeah. Actually, in Little Rock, there was a time when I had
Thanks, Tracy.
an accident and damaged my pickup truck.
It was
And I
rhetorical.
had to ride a bike through downtown streets to get from a couple of miles away. And it was terrifying. There were no bike racks. People would steal the bikes if you left them on the street. And it was dangerous. And we had no trailers for them. So it's a new world. Thank
It
you.
is. Thank you. All right, bring it back to the commission. Any comments or motions or otherwise?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move that we forward ADM 13-4408 to City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
All right, motion second. Any other discussion? Mr. Gar?
Autry?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Sure, yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Winston?
Yes.
Bunch?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. That concludes our agenda. I think there's a subdivision meeting. Is it this Thursday?
Yeah, this Thursday, subdivision committee meeting, we have one item on the agenda.
Has this commission ever turned down the city on an application for anything? If not, we should think about doing so just to see what happens.
When Bill was on, we've given several hearings about stuff.
Listen, the library had some trouble, didn't it?
But I think so, yeah.
All right, this meeting's adjourned.
But mostly not.
I mean, these guys just assume we're gonna improve anything they bring through, you know?
Hey, good job tonight, guys.